Hi, hello. As you know, I'm with Reza Merchant today. He's a phenomenal entrepreneur and a guy that you are going to hear a lot more of in the property scene if you haven't done already. I'm joining him in his boardroom of his HQ here in Bedford Square, London. Hello, Reza. Good to see you. How are you doing?
Yeah, great.
Now, tell us about your latest project.
So the latest project, which you see up there, is our flagship scheme in Old Oak Common, where we have 550 co-living units.
Hang on, let's just get this straight for people at home. 550 rooms.
Yeah.
So where people are thinking about doing 5 rooms in an HMO or whatever, this is 550.
Yes, 550.
Wow.
Most, predominantly sort of ensuite rooms. Some of those rooms have their own kitchens, some of them share kitchenettes.
Now, is this this must be unique in the UK. Is there anything bigger than this?
No, it's the largest co-living scheme in the world, actually.
The largest co-living scheme in the world, and it's right here in London, and you're the guy behind it.
Well, it's not just me, it's the team.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about why this is different from other types of co-living schemes.
So I think firstly it's the size, most sort of, that you get, there's co-living schemes all over the press in the US which are 18 units, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's just the sheer size which is the big unique thing. And what that size allows us to do is to provide just, a completely revolutionary way of living, right, in terms of the shared spaces that are offered. Because we strongly believe that property hasn't kept up with the way people actually want to live. Like the kind of millennial generation, as we call it, is very different to previous generations. They're used to having things at a click of their button. They're used to complete convenience. They value experiences a lot more than material possessions. Home ownership is no longer the goal. The goal is to actually make the most of your life and experience it for full. But buildings haven't responded to that, and so the collective Old Oak, we feel, is really responds to the way people want to live. Now, what does that mean in practice? So, in addition to the 550 units, there is about 12,000 square foot of shared space throughout the building, which is designed for people to interact with others and really create those experiences which they're going to value most. So we have, a cinema room, a games room, a library, a series of private dining rooms that people can book when they want to have a dinner party. There's a gym on the ground floor which people get access to. There's, a really kind of groundbreaking restaurant, which is incredibly affordable as well, where you can get lunch for a £5, dinner for 7-8 quid. And so, it's all built around this sort of convenience and communal way of living.
Who's your target tenant market?
So it's really sort of people between the ages of 20 to 35, kind of young working Londoners, so, really the lifeblood of our economy.
It sounds to me that when a lot of people do smaller HMO type of properties, it's often a lifestyle compromise as opposed to a lifestyle choice. It seems to me that you're trying to make this a way of living of choice for young people.
Exactly. So, HMO has a very negative connotation because most HMOs are, substandard. They're not providing like a great quality of living. We've gone the extra mile to create in our eyes what is almost the perfect product for, the modern young professional, and it's a way people choose to live, not the way people are forced to live.
And your office space here is very much, it goes along with that vision. We've seen areas like the Den and the Igloo for your work. Is that very much how your collective living's communal spaces are?
Yeah, so we live and breathe what we do, and our brand represents what we do, and so this being our HQ kind of represents how we think and how we like to kind of lead our lives, which is why you've got a series of really interesting communal spaces. So the area downstairs, the den, is a kind of co-working space during the day, where we have Pi Labs based, which is Europe's first prop tech accelerator. So you have during the day there you have entrepreneurs sort of making things happen, growing their businesses, but the space is designed in a way where it's completely flexible. So all of the furniture is on wheels, it's fully soundproof, so that in the evenings we have a fully functional bar, and we can have music events, we can have interesting talks, so it's truly multifunctional and 24-hour space. And so even at the Collective Old Oak, the spaces are designed to be very flexible
for a number of uses, and that makes the experience a little bit better.
Yeah, it's like the boundaries between work and play are kind of converging.
Yes.
And so we're going to be having everything from yoga on the terrace to top DJs coming and playing, all the way through to really interesting and inspiring talks by entrepreneurs that are going to really inspire people. So I think you've got to provide that array of things to truly appeal to the target audience, because the target audience is interested in all of those things.
Absolutely. Now, you're a very young entrepreneur. You're in the under 30 club. Talk us through how you started. You studied here in London?
Yeah, so I was kind of born and raised in London, in northwest London. I also went to university. I went to the LSE, and in my last year there, I kind of first-hand, saw the struggles that young Londoners face in trying to find any half-decent accommodation, and actually set up a student lettings agency.
Okay,
so
a lettings agency.
Yeah, so that was a couple of friends, £1,600 overdraft, using the LSE library as our first office, and that was our kind of attempt to go about solving the housing crisis.
Okay.
Very quickly though, we realised that the issue in London is with supply, and unless you can find a way of creating supply, you're not going to have any impact on the market. And back then, as a capital constrained business, we started to actually lease residential houses, reconfigure them, and then sublease them. So essentially the rent to rent.
The rent to rent.
No one called it rent to rent back then because it was pretty new. So we were literally just leasing houses, reconfiguring them, and then subleasing them.
This was while you were at university?
Yeah, so this was, I started the business in my last year.
Yes. And
our first house was done sort of about a year after that.
So I have to ask you this. I mean, you went to LSE, you would have been pitched to by all the big city firms and banks and management consultancy firms and everything like that. You would have had a great sort of city career. What made you turn your back on all of that and say, no, I want to do something on my own?
It comes down to fulfillment and purpose, and so I tell the story quite a few times, but in the summer of my second year of university, I spent the summer working in Singapore.
All right.
For a real estate company, and then I went travelling for a few weeks on my own around Thailand, and it was, as cliche as it sounds, you kind of almost find yourself in situations like that, and I really sort of realised that what's going to fulfil me is not a 9 to 5, it's something that has a much bigger purpose, that ultimately has a much bigger impact on society, and to kind of day in, day out, sustainably kind of retain a level of intensity that's required in an environment like this. Like, I think it can't just be money that drives you, it's got to be that kind of bigger purpose, and also just seeing that actually what you're doing is having a massive impact on society and is fundamentally changing the way a generation lives and works.
Yes. So, you did the rent to rent. What was and then you got into buying the asset. Could you just talk us through what made you decide to, because many people just do rent to rent and that's their strategy, that's what they do. But you went into ownership and then you went to owning big stuff. Just talk us through how you made that switch.
So, after doing the rent to rent, what we realised is that, ultimately the value is in owning the real estate in the long term. And also by owning it, you can invest a lot of money into it to really create sort of the perfect product. So sort of back end of 2011, we started to buy kind of, existing rundown buildings. We'd acquire them, renovate them, do them up, and then the beauty is once you let a building, then you can kind of move on to the next one. And very quickly we started to do bigger and bigger deals. So our kind of scheme that we did we acquired sort of back end of 2011 was a derelict hostel in Camden, which we turned into 50 units.
People will be thinking, how did you get the money? Young guy in his 20s, how did you structure this?
It wasn't easy, especially back then with not much of a track record. It took a lot of convincing, but I think that if you are willing to stand behind what you believe and you believe in it 100%, and the deal is good, the money will come, right? There's lots of money out there, but it's about having real belief in what you do. Like you can't be unsure about, is it going to work, is it not? Like failure is not an option, right? And if you have that 150% conviction, and you're willing to do whatever it takes to make it happen, like people see that. And if at the end of the day, if you put yourself in someone's shoes that has money, they see some really sort of just motivated, driven person that has a single-minded focus to deliver. Like that's exactly the kind of thing you want to back. And so, throughout our sort of growth, we've had, various investors that have, thankfully believed in our vision and have backed us.
It's having the vision and believing in it at 150%.
Yes, it's having the vision, but then it's also being able to deliver on that vision, right? And it's being able to translate that vision into action and actually making things happen, which is the key. And that kind of ability to make things happen is really what we look for across, when we hire people, when we work with people, like whatever it is, right? You've got to be able to get shit done.
And I guess when you went into the development side for the first time, you had track record at something, which was the rent-to-rent, which obviously would have
exactly.
generated
So
cash flow.
you leverage as much as possible off your previous track record, and as you rightly say, we had proven the underlying business model of renting kind of compact but well-designed units, and so that formed the basis of why people trusted us. You can't just wake up one day and have a great idea and think it's going to happen tomorrow. Like it requires hard work and persistence, and people saw how quickly we scaled the rent-to-rent business and how good our occupancy was and how well the buildings were trading, and that gave them the confidence to then back us, on actually starting to acquire buildings.
I talk to a lot of successful entrepreneurs, and there's a lot of successful entrepreneurs who typically are in the top 1%, but within the top 1%, there's the top 0.001%. And what you've done, and with your company, is something that people often twice your age don't achieve. What is it that gives rise to that sort of success? What is it about you, do you think, and the way you approach things that has been the driver for the success?
So I think there's a couple of different things. It's having the ability and the desire to eliminate anything that could possibly have a negative impact on your performance and on your ability to deliver, and that sometimes means making quite harsh decisions in your personal life. Sometimes you have to compromise on relationships in your personal life to be able to focus on work life, whether it's friends, whether it's partners. I've had to make some pretty tough decisions for the business, but it just comes down to what you want more badly, right? And if you prioritize the success of your business and you want to go all in, you have to go all in, and all in means sometimes neglecting other things in your life, which is easier said than done. So I'd say that's one thing. The second thing I think is, well, for me personally, is discipline. That complete discipline is so important. So I have a kind of very strict routine that I stick to. So if I'm not sleeping by 10:30 on a weeknight, like I start to get itchy, right, nervous, because I'm that obsessed about shit. That's going to impact my ability to perform and be on point the next day. But I think it's that real kind of obsession that then drives you to just keep on going. So that discipline, not only in terms of sleep, in terms of how you eat as well. Like eating junk food and sugar, like ultimately that slows you down and it impacts how quick and sharp you are. So I'm very strict about what I eat during the week. Don't avoid processed sugar, make sure I'm as healthy as possible. So, but all not because I want to lose weight, but because it's all linked to optimal performance. Like I view what I do as being an athlete, right, and having to be at peak performance all the time, and really focusing on eliminating anything that impacts being at peak performance.
Peak performance in all aspects of your life, and which obviously translates into the business arena.
Yeah, so because if you want to work 15-hour days consistently and be performing to the best of your ability and not be exhausted, then like you have to be in physically and mentally in great shape. So I know that if I have a chocolate in the morning, that will impact how sharp I'll be, because I'll have a sugar rush and then I'll kind of come down a bit. I'll be a bit fuzzy in my head, and for what? Just some cheap thrill? Like it's just it's not worth it. So it's just having that really militant attitude
and discipline. Do you set goals for yourself? Did you at university have a 10-year, 20-year plan?
I think it's very difficult to look that far ahead. We're now getting to a stage where we have kind of more of a business plan and more of like a 5-year view, because I think to translate that to a company of 35 people, people need to see a plan, right? I mean, for me personally, my focus is on giving it my 110% every day, because I know that if I do that, things will continue to progress exponentially. But I think the plan is more important for the wider team.
What's your attitude to risk? Because obviously you took a lot of risks in the beginning. How's it changed now that you've got a little bit more to lose?
Look, I think your appetite to risk inevitably changes as you grow, because you're exposed to more risk, right, as you grow. However, you need to, I think my approach to risk is still the same, and it's looking at, right, what is the risk and how can you mitigate that from happening? Because if you don't take any risk, you're not going to get anywhere. So it's about taking a very calculated approach and having full confidence that you can mitigate those risks, right, and that you have fallback positions and that you can find a way around those risks. So yeah, it's not about taking blind risks. Like you've got to analyze those risks to death and make sure that you're comfortable with them. But then when you go for it, you go for it.
How much of it is analysis and how much of it is gut, do you think?
So I think gut feel is something that gets trained over time, and so even if I think maybe at times people can accuse me of making a very quick decision, but actually that decision is based on years and years of training that gut and honing it in. But as you grow, you also need to back that gut feel up with hardcore evidence. And so now there's a dual approach. So even if there's a big decision to make, I won't just trust my gut. I'll make sure that we have the data and the analysis to back it up, because that's important externally and also for the wider team.
Okay. Now you're growing. The business is growing dramatically. I mean, how many units have you got under construction or planning?
So at the moment, if you look at what we have up and running and what's in our pipeline, it's about 2,000 units.
2,000 rooms all in London?
Yeah, all in kind of zones 1 to 3.
And it's not just, if you like, the rental market for residential occupiers, but you're also keen on providing space to, you've got young professionals, but young entrepreneurs as well.
So a key part of our business is our our workspace and actually providing space for freelancers and startup businesses. And if you look at Old Oak, we have space for about 400 people working there. So that's also a key part of our business, because again, if you look at the way habits have changed, people nowadays want, work in very different ways. The goal is no longer to come out of university and go and work for a big investment bank. It's often to start your own business or be a freelancer, so you have that freedom and flexibility. And so the workspaces we provide respond to that freedom and flexibility. So, it's about providing, flexible leases, small compact spaces which are affordable, all inclusive, so people don't have to worry about, kind of rates, utilities, all of that.
How much of a factor do you think it is? I mean, from listening to you, it's very much your market is your generation, and you are of that generation, and that must be quite a USP in terms
That's
of.
probably one of our biggest USPs, because to kind of breathe and feel your target market allows you to provide a much more effective product. Someone who's 50 years old trying to design for our generation is, they're not going to have the same empathy that we have with our target demographic, because we are that demographic.
Yes.
I think that's hugely important, and thankfully we're in a position to do projects at a significant scale that would otherwise only be done by much older people. But we have that unique advantage of being that target market as well.
So what's next? I mean, you're still very young, the company is very young, you've got a huge number of units under construction. Do you have a vision of where you see yourself and Collective in 10, 20 years' time?
I think 10 or 20 years is very difficult, because I could have never imagined where we would have got to today a few years ago. So, I hope it's the same in 10 years. But in terms of our sort of 5-year vision, we want to deliver similar schemes like Old Oak across London on a large scale, and but also kind of bring technology to the forefront of what we do, and kind of really use technology to enhance the experience that people have, connect people, and build a thriving community.
So for a lot of people watching this, if they've got a 5-room HMO, they're providing broadband internet for their tenants. What do you mean when you start talking about technology? Presumably you're going far beyond that.
Yeah, so it's having an app whereby people can order food from downstairs. They can book different amenity spaces in the building. They can report maintenance problem. Going one step further, they can see who else is in the building and connect with people in the building. Like you've got various dating apps like Tinder and things like that. We want to incorporate things like that into our mobile app, because people value connections and experiences, and so we want to use technology to facilitate those.
Today, the rental market for people that live in rooms or house shares is very much fragmented, and people live in smaller collectives, if you like. What do you see as the trends going forward over the next few years for the whole collective living space, and how do you see the operating smaller schemes?
So no, I think given the shortage of housing and affordable housing in London, I think there's always going to be demand for kind of small scale HMOs, because there just simply isn't enough supply. I think the end user is going to become more discerning, hopefully, with kind of offerings like ours on a larger scale. I just think that smaller scale landlords are going to have to be more on the ball and actually provide a much better quality of service, because the amount of times you get complaints from people about, oh, my landlord's just slow and doesn't fix things on time, I think stuff like that is going to become increasingly unacceptable, right? If you want to maintain good occupancy and a strong income, you're going to have to up your game in terms of the service that you offer.
But I'm going to make a sweeping comment here. it strikes me from talking to you, this is about the PC and Apple all over again. So if you need a computer and you just want a functional thing, people go for the PC. But the Apple is something that people want, and is probably something that they're going to pay more for because it's the experience.
Yeah.
Do you see any similarities with that analogy?
Definitely. You know, if you provide a superior product, you will obviously get a premium for that.
And do you see people are sort of occupiers to be very much proud and wear it as a badge of honour that they're living in a collective?
We hope so. So, you know, we hope that all of the work we're doing into kind of building our brand and creating the perfect offering will translate into people feeling a real affinity to us as a brand, and it being much more than just a room, right? It's an experience, and it's access to potentially a life-changing experience that we're giving them.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Thanks very much for sharing so much. And of course, you're coming to the Baker Street Property Meet 28th of June to give us more insights and more of your success story there. So thanks very much
Great,
for
thank
your
you for
time.
having me.
Thank you.